Hi, welcome to the video on the lumbo-pelvic hip complex posture distortion. As you can see, I'm sitting on a ball, and for a good reason. Most Americans, a lot of them, sit down for their profession. We have so many computer programmers, so many office people, CEOs, truck drivers, you name it. There's a lot of sitting in the American society. For those of us who get to stand up for work, well, that is a whole different set of issues. But the reason why I'm sitting on the ball is to prove a point. We have a lot of sitting in our society, and that brings me to this video, which is all about the lumbo-pelvic hip complex, posture distortion. Again, lumbo-pelvic hip complex, posture distortion. And whenever we sit down, notice just the posture. We're sitting down, our legs are arched, our hips are, in a sitting position. And when we stand up, notice how the legs straighten out relative to the torso when we straighten out. Well, that's key because there's something happens with our leg muscles and our hips that you really need to be aware of. In fact, I think this is so crucial that if a lot of companies around the whole United States, around the world, explained this very fact to all their coworkers who have desk jobs, I think this could lower healthcare cost dramatically. Not because it's going to invent some new drug or something, but because I really think this is a chronic syndrome across America that needs to be addressed, and we could save a lot of money if people had healthy backs. And one of the biggest issues is sitting down that causes lower back pain. And this is why. My hip flexor extends my hip for me. So whenever I walk, my knees are raising up in the air, and it's caused because of my hips. Now there's a second muscle in my quadricep, my leg muscle, my thigh muscle, called the rectus femoris. And that's one of the four muscles in the quadricep, quad meaning forward, that means the leg muscle right here, that goes straight down the center of the leg, that assists with our hip flexors and our psoas complex, basically more hip flexors deep inside of us, that flex our hip. It gives our hip flexion. Now, when we're sitting down all day long, now this is crucial because when we're sitting down all day long, notice my hip flexors are in a shortened position, okay? And then when I stand up, they're stretched. But if we spend most of our life sitting down in a chair, or even a ball, mind you see people in work having balls, which is great, but it's not going to do anything for what's going on with the hips because your hips are still shortened. Your muscles get tight over time. So as you stand up, you can't bring the hips through because just like the bicep-tricep exercise where my biceps overdeveloped over my tricep, I can't straighten out all the way, we can't straighten our hips out all the way. So we're like this. But you're not going to walk around like this, hunched over all day. I don't know, maybe some of us do, but it's just not going to happen. So what do we do to compensate from that? Because our hips won't allow, our hip flexors won't allow our hips to come all the way through so we can stand up straight and tall with good posture. So we're bent over. Now watch real closely to my back. I can't bring my hips through, so I bring my chest up and I just put an arch in my lower back. Okay? Now you might see coworkers and if yourself, and all you got to do is look in the mirror, and it makes us look fatter too. So honestly I'm in shape. But if your belt is tilting forward and you have this arch in the lower back, many of you have gone to chiropractors, L5, L4 area. It hurts. I mean, my muscles in my back are literally tightening up right now, and it's because of my anterior pelvic tilt, my hips tilting forward. So we got to undo that. We got to get our hips to here, so I can take all that pressure right off my lower back. And it causes other symptoms too, but that's the major one that we got to address. And if you don't have any lower back pain and you're a sports athlete, you can check yourself out in the mirror too. You know, high school sports, college, doesn't matter. Your hips tilted forward, you got the, you know, booty sticking out there. If this is tight, that's going to cause increased risk of pulling your hamstring, because when you're like this, ow, it really stretches that out. But if you have good posture, you know, it feels good. You got a lot more flexibility. That's in a whole nother video. But you get the point of what can happen if you don't fix this. So, what's going on? When you sit down, that tightens up, but when you stand up, what do we need to do to counteract that? So, if the hip muscles are in the front that are causing that tightness, and that's the problem, then the opposite muscle is our glutes. So we need to stretch out our hip muscles, strengthen up our glute muscles in order to bring our hips around to give us a straight back and have us feel better, get better sports performance. And that's happening all over America where we have this lower back issues because of sitting down. Now, some people say, well, I sit on a ball, so I'm okay, that's not going to affect me. Well, you know what? If you're sitting in the ball all day long, you might have good upper posture and stuff while working on your desk, you're feeling great, but your hip flexors and your quadriceps are still in a shortened position. So you can still be acceptable to lower back pain or anterior pelvic tilt. So you got to do the exercises to stretch those muscles and strengthen that. Not only do we got to work the glutes, another tight muscle is the quadriceps, and then your lower back muscles get tight too. So we have to work our abdominal muscles as well, because the abdominal muscles are the opposite of our tight back muscles. So our abdominals are stretched out, our back muscles are tight, our hips are tight, and our glutes are relaxed. So stretch the hips, tighten the glutes, and stretch the lower back and tighten the abdominal muscles. It brings our hips around, and now we solve that issue. So other videos, I'm going to show you exercises and flexibility like the foam roll that are going to concentrate on gaining flexibility in the hips, flexibility in the quadriceps, and flexibility in the back, and how to strengthen up the glutes in the proper range of motion and get in a proper abdominal crunch so we can strengthen up those abs so we can protect that lower back. So if you're ready for the next video, click on the next video. I think the next video is going to be about lower posture and how that affects our ankles and our knees.